Women, what's the most pathetic thing a man has done to try to pick you up? I was flagged down by the driver of a windowless white van while trying to save my house from a toilet paper crisis. It was the middle of summer, and I realized we were out of toilet paper in my house. I was 17 at the time, and my parents had driven both cars to work. I was going out with friends in about an hour, but decided to quickly walk over to the nearby supermarket and pick up some toilet paper. Now I'm walking home with this giant thing of toilet paper, and I can't stop laughing at how ridiculous I must look to anyone driving by. I get to this small intersection that has only me and this white windowless murder van. I'm texting my friends and laughing to myself, not really giving the van much notice. I cross and continue down the street where I live carrying my toilet paper when suddenly a white van pulls up at the end of the road and out walks a guy. At first, I think he must be a repairman, but then it became quite obvious he was walking up to me. All I could think was, oh snap, I'm about to end up on a milk carton. He comes up to me and says, "Look, I don't do this very often, but you were smiling so much, and I was wondering if you would like to hang out sometime. I'd love to explore you." At first, I paused and thought about responding by saying I was only 17, but figured he probably wouldn't care, so I told him I had a boyfriend and kept walking before he could say anything else. To make matters worse, he had to follow me down the road as I walked to my house with my toilet paper, and he walked back to his car. This meant he saw me enter my house and knew where I lived. I spent the rest of the hour in an absolute panic waiting for my friends to pick me up as his van kept circling my block. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I was sitting by myself at school, reading a book, since I had an hour and a half between classes. I was really into my book, not wanting to be bothered, when this guy walked by. I glanced up at him, just out of habit, like I do when I like to know who's around me. A few minutes later, he walked by again. And then, a few minutes after that, he walked by again. But this time, he sat down, right next to me and started trying to chat. I didn't mind a little random conversation, but I was clearly trying to read, uncomfortable with him sitting so close, and clearly giving off the vibe that I wasn't interested by returning to my book. But he kept going. Eventually, he found out I was into psychology and asked if I wanted to hear an interesting fact. "Sure, whatever," I said, hoping it might get him to leave. "You've already thought about sleeping with me," he said. I laughed in his face while he tried to explain that every woman thinks about sleeping with any guy she sees within 15 seconds. He left shortly after that. Story 3. I was waiting for the bus, Route 25, when this odd-looking guy in his 40s approached me. He had the vibe of a villain's sidekick in a kid's movie, like the kind who lurks around the edges and says weird things. He was holding a big Bible in one of those fancy carrying cases, and I immediately cringed, thinking he was about to preach to me. I live in a small town, and the last thing I wanted was to explain that I'm not religious. Sure enough, he asked if I'd gone to church that morning. I said no, and then he asked what my religion was. I got kind of uncomfortable, and he picked up on it quickly. "Oh, you're an atheist," he said. Yeah, me too. I just went this one time because Jesus makes me a better person. But, yeah, God is stupid. Haha. Do you have a boyfriend?" From then on, I saw him every Sunday on the bus, Bible in hand, heading to church. But after that day, he never made eye contact with me again. What kind of scumbag lies about his spirituality and pretends to have a super special relationship with the creator of the universe just to hit on someone? Total scumbag. Story 4. I was visiting family in Halifax, and my mom and I decided to do a ghost tour, because that's just how we roll. The tour kicks off in front of a church at sundown, and there's this group of gothic guys hanging out nearby. Normally, I don't mind the goth look, but one guy really stood out. He was wearing a black vest, no shirt, a top hat, and sunglasses. Honestly, he looked like a complete idiot. The tour begins, and as we're listening to the stories, Top Hat Guy starts lingering behind and listening in. The tour guide tells him he has to pay if he wants to stay, and Top Hat responds with, "So I have to pay to listen to you?" In the sweetest, most Nova Scotian way, the guide just tells him to F off. But before leaving, Top Hat steps toward me and hands me a torn piece of a KFC flyer with his phone number scribbled on it. Because of course, all goths eat at KFC, right? I tossed it to the ground, making sure he saw me, because nothing says I'm interested like creeping on a girl, being rude to a friendly guide, and expecting her to fall for you after being a total jerk. Then, surrounded by Nova Scotians, the women instantly go into mom mode, looking out for me, while the men spent the rest of the tour making sure there were no more creepers lurking around. Oh, and did I mention I was 16, and he looked like he was in his late 20s? Yikes. Story 5. I was outside a store late at night, having a smoke while waiting for my boyfriend who was inside. It was close to 1 a.m. The store was open 24/7. So when I saw a man in black pants and a tucked-in white shirt, I assumed he was security. But as he walked past, something seemed off. His shirt was half untucked, and he was sweating profusely. He glanced at me but kept walking around the building. A minute or two later, he came back, but this time he looked me in the eyes and said hello. I said hi back, and he kept walking. A few feet away, though, he stopped and turned around, looking a little nervous. After a moment, he mustered up his courage and yelled, "Can I give you a foot rub?" My jaw dropped, and I just shook my head no. He quickly disappeared around the corner, and I never saw him again. Story 6. A friend and I were talking. I knew that he had a crush on me, but I had gently let him down several times before. I mentioned how worried I was for my boyfriend off in Afghanistan. Our last phone call, he had actually reported to me that his buddies were being stalked by a terrible sniper, and I hadn't heard from him in 2 weeks. Your boyfriend is fighting in Afghanistan? Wouldn't it be funny if he died, because then we could go out guilt-free? Just walked away, and stopped talking to him. He was dead to me. Still now if I see him in social situations, I walk away. Story 7. I met this really weird guy at college orientation who would not stop asking me about my intimate life. I knew him for about 5 minutes, and he was helping me walk back to my dorm since I didn't know the way very well. In those 10 minutes of walking, he questioned everything there is to know about my lady part, even after I told him I had a boyfriend and that he was making me uncomfortable. After we arrived at my dorm, he asked if he could go up to my room and if we could have a fun first college experience. No. Story 8. I went to Dollar General to buy pads and tampons and noticed a guy staring at me, so I smiled and kept walking. I grabbed the items that matched my coupons and went to check out. To my surprise, the same guy from earlier was there. He scanned and bagged my stuff, and I handed him the coupons. He looked like he was about to say something, but instead, he glanced down at the coupons. Instead of scanning them right away, he took the pads out of the bag and spent what felt like 3 minutes reading every word on the coupon and inspecting the pads from every angle. After finally scanning it, he placed the pads back in the bag. Then came the tampon coupon, and he did the exact same thing. After 6 minutes of scrutinizing my items, he finally asked, "So, are you doing anything tonight?" I tried to stay polite and left as quickly as possible. Story 9. I work long hours as an electrician and spend most of my day in my mobile office, a white van which contains all my tools and equipment I need for the endless amounts of rewires and TV aerial installations I do. I was driving by the local supermarket. I remember it well as it was a beautiful summer's day. The sun was shining on my neck, and the radio was pumping out those happy songs you only hear in July, when out of the corner of my eye I see this cute and kooky-looking girl carrying a jumbo pack of toilet paper, and I laugh and think to myself she's cute. She was playing with her cell, trying to cross the street, and then looked straight at me and smiled. I smiled back, and she continued across the road. I glanced in my mirrors once she passed out of view and was surprised to see she was glancing back at me. She wants the D, I told myself, and I don't know if it was the sunshine, the music on the radio, or just that her stare had a hold on me, but in a moment, I thought go for it. I threw my van into a frantic U-turn to catch up with her and took the first space I could find to park, nearly killing myself and scrambling all my tools in the back, but none of that mattered in the moment. I jumped out the van and put on my swag walk. Gushing with a sexy confidence that I knew would make her mine, I paced towards this beautiful stranger, desperately searching my mind for the best pickup line I could find. "Do you have pet insurance? 'Cause I'm gonna wreck your pee." "No, too creepy. I am now just yards away." "Do you like jam? 'Cause I want to jam my dong in your mouth." No, just keep it simple," I told myself. I stood in front of this cute girl now and decide to just keep it simple and say, "Look, I don't do this very often, but you were smiling so much, and I was wondering if you would like to hang out sometime." And then for some stupid reason, I thought it would be cool to say something out there, to make myself seem cool. What would Iron Man do? I pondered for a second and said, "I'd love to explore you," as she stopped to take in my advance. "I have a boyfriend." she muttered, her eyes diverting my stare. I felt my heart sink like a lead weight in my chest. My rapid heartbeat slowed as I realized I had messed it up. I apologized, made my excuses, and went back to the van ashamed. To make matters worse, she was heading in the same direction I had just parked, and I had to walk in tow. The girl of my dreams ahead and me, lagging behind in her shadow, reliving the stupidity of my failed attempt, repeating to myself over and over in my head, "I'd love to explore you. What was I thinking?" As I watched her finally walk to her front door, I thought, "Oh well, you've let another good one go with your own stupidity. Someday I will find that person to love and spend my life with. I just wish it could have been you," I thought, as I took my last look at the one that got away as the front door finally slammed shut. Story 10. The worst kind of guys are the Facebook creeps. These guys comment on your profile picture with things like, "You're so pretty," or "gorgeous," hoping to stand out and get girls to message them back. They're also the ones who like every single status you post, no matter what it's about. It could be an inside joke with your friends, and they'll still hit like. And of course, they're the ones who message you at 1 a.m. with a simple, "Hey there," or "What's up?" To qualify as the ultimate pathetic Facebook pickup artist, guys need to check off at least 2 out of 3 of these behaviors. Story 11. I was in a bar and a guy walked up to me and said, "Babe, babe, I've got so much money." And then he just stood there looking at me. Not sure what he expected would happen. And a bonus story because it happened on the same night. I was standing at the bar waiting to get served. A guy walks up and tries paying with a 50-pound note. The bartender, who happens to be my mate, tells him he's sorry, but it's a fake note. He hands the fake money back, showing the guy exactly how he can tell. The guy argues that it's real, but not with any kind of conviction or emotion. Finally puts it away and pays with a 20 pounds instead. He then turns to me and says, "I guess they're not used to high rollers in here." Story 12. I was sitting at the bar eating a bowl of soup when a guy, clearly a little drunk, started trying to chat me up in an aggressive way. I wasn't interested, but I tried to be polite until he hit me with this gem of a line. "What kind of soup is that?" I told him it was cheddar and sausage, and he responded with, "So, you must really love sausage, huh?" Wink wink. Get it? Sausage. Yes, I got it, and I really should have called him out on his terrible, inappropriate pun right then. But instead, I just gave him a "you're kidding me" look and turned my back. He didn't get the hint and kept trying to engage me until my much more direct friend told him to knock it off, straight up. Story 13. I was working the door at a music venue when a pretty fat bald guy walked out to smoke and winked at me. I smiled politely and went back to my book. He went out to the ATM, then came back. He reached into his pockets and pulled out a large wad of 20s and asked if he could count his money there because he had to straighten it out. I shrugged as he started counting out 20s one by one, making a nice, neat stack. There was over $1,000 there. He put it away, then thanked me with a wink and walked down the hall. He tripped on his own feet and barely avoided face planting into the floor. As he corrected himself, the very drunk bassist from the band walked out of the bathrooms and proceeded to point and laugh at the guy for tripping. The money counter looked back at me, got red, and ran out the door. I did my best not to laugh, but couldn't help it. Story 14. 2 situations are tied as the worst in my mind, but I'll finish with a worst line/best result example to lighten the mood a bit. It was the last call, and I went up to the bar to close out my tab when this sleazy guy, who was eyeballing everyone in the room, leaned back, checked me out, and said, "Yeah, you'll do." Then he threw his arm around me and started trying to lead me out the door. That's why I hate clubs. Tied with that guy was the one who sidled up to me at Schlotsky's while I was struggling to get the lid on my cup at the drink fountain. Frustrated, I muttered, "Damn it, mouth, you better hold it in place," mixing up lip of the cup with mouth for stoned reasons. That's when he slid against my arm and dropped this gem. "You sound like my future ex-girlfriend." Really, dude? Really? Worst line, best result. After shopping, I had to lug my cart all the way down the hill to the corral since the one nearby was full. As I was almost back to my car, some tall, lanky guy came sprinting up behind me, put his hand on my shoulder, bad move, and said, Hi, so I couldn't help but notice you returned your cart to a corral even though that island next to you has plenty of space for another abandoned basket. That was thoughtful, and I like thoughtful, so I wondered if maybe you'd want to go. Or we could just hang out if that's weird. Or I'm weird. Oh God, I can hear myself. So without missing a beat, I deadpanned. I could be a serial killer. Because I'm a socially awkward penguin who can't flirt. He laughed, and we dated for 2 weeks. Story 15. Creep didn't respect my personal space, knew information about me I never gave him, and someone else had to let me out of his car. A couple of years ago, I had a coworker who made me feel really uncomfortable. He was kind of creepy and had no respect for personal space. I could be working on my computer, and I'd feel him breathing down my neck. One time, the whole team decided to go out, and this guy offered to pick me up. When he got to my house, he spoke to my mom like he was my date, saying things like, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of her and bring her home before 11. I was 18 at the time. Then he told me, "Your house looks exactly like the one in the picture." I never posted pictures of my house online, so I was confused. Turns out, he'd Googled my address and taken screenshots of my house from Google Maps. When I got in his car, I realized the passenger door could only be opened from the outside, and the window handle was broken, so I couldn't roll the window down. I figured that out after putting my seatbelt on, and he casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, your seatbelt gets stuck, so you'll need my help getting out." Red flag after red flag. The whole ride there, he made inappropriate comments. Once we got to the meeting spot, he leaned way too close to me to unbuckle my seatbelt, then just sat there staring at me for way too long, until one of my other coworkers came and opened the door for me. Later that night, another coworker asked for my number so he could send us directions to his house in case we got lost. And this creep, who had been standing behind me the whole time, just rattled off my number from memory. I had never given it to him. A bunch of other red flags came up throughout the night, and it finally got to the point where the other guys told him to F off and leave. The next day, I filed a complaint with my supervisor about him. Story 16. This didn't happen to me, but I did witness it happen to someone else, my mom. My mom, my brother, and I were heading home from our English class. I think my brother also attended that day, so he was with us, and we took a taxi. My brother and I sat in the back, and my mom sat in the front next to the driver. Just to clarify, my mom was and still is married. But the taxi driver seemed completely oblivious to us kids in the back and spent the entire ride flirting with her. I don't remember much of the car ride since it was a long time ago, but I think it could be justified as him just being overly friendly. What I do clearly remember, though, is that my mom asked the driver to stop at the beginning of our street instead of at our house, so he wouldn't know where we lived. My brother and I actually found it kind of funny at the time, joked with her about the driver bringing her flowers the next day. I'm not entirely sure if this is connected, but from that point on, whenever we take a taxi, my mom always sits in the back whenever possible. Story 17. One night, this guy called me. I wasn't doing anything, so I decided to see where it would go. We exchanged pleasantries. Strike 1, I never gave him my number. Turns out, he got it through lies. Strike 2, he was clearly very drunk. Strike 3, I've met this guy at parties, but I don't really like him, even as a friend. I usually try to avoid him. He's boring, rude, and kind of a loser. Plus, he's not particularly attractive and significantly older than me. To set the tone, this guy isn't really a nice guy. He's the, "I would be a nice guy if women weren't such devious whores" type. He used to be an extremist religious guy, holding on to the idea that women should maintain their purity, even as he tried to hit on women 10 years younger than him, usually in a vulgar way, but thankfully always unsuccessful. Anyway, he asks me out. He knows I have a boyfriend, but is clearly undeterred by that. So I try a different approach. I tell him directly that I'm not attracted to him. He's not easily dissuaded. He suggests a different activity for our date, tea instead of coffee, and pleads with me for about a minute. That doesn't work. Then he tells me that I can't see how perfect we would be for each other because I'm not mature enough, and that I should just agree with him because it's only one date after all. I counter by telling him that I already know him, and from that, I can infer that we're not a good match. He then tells me that other guys just want to sleep with me, but he really wants to get to know the real me. He says his mistake was being too honest with me. What? I tell him there's really nothing he could have said that would have changed my mind, and that's true. He pleads with me a little more. Finally, convinced I've made a poor decision, he tells me he hopes the guy I sleep with leaves me a single mother of 2 kids and hangs up before I can respond. Story 18. It was rush hour in Midtown Manhattan, and I was on my way home from work, planning to start my homework. I was 19 and still in college when this random man, probably in his 40s or 50s, with balding white hair and a huge stomach, grabbed my wrist and pulled me closer to him, pinning me against a wall. I was so young and terrified that I didn't pull away. He started asking me what my name was, where I worked, and then went into a bizarre 20-minute rant about himself. He bragged about his rags-to-riches story, claiming to be a high-powered executive at Wells Fargo. Then he went off about how much he loved redheads, saying he was obsessed with gingers like me. It went on forever. Instead of treating me like a person, he reduced me to a color, completely uninterested in who I was or what my life was like. He insisted on giving me his business card, and despite me repeatedly saying I had a boyfriend, he shoved it into my bag. I noticed his wedding band on his ring finger. What a scumbag. I quickly rushed away. Now that I'm older, I would never have stayed in that situation. But back then, when a man grabs you in public, clearly stronger than you, and everyone around you is ignoring it, I genuinely thought I wasn't safe and should just let him say whatever he wanted. Looking back, it's crazy how pathetic everything he did and said was. Story 19. Mine was through Facebook message. I commented on a mutual friend's post about art, and this guy messages me, opening with, "Hello. I'd like to introduce myself, but I believe you're perfectly capable of reading my name." Oh, how original. My inners are practically soaked. I ask him what he's into and what kind of person he is. He tells me he makes prints and calls them pieces with a instead of pieces, then starts rambling about a Guy Fawkes print he created. I checked his profile, and it's full of V for Vendetta stuff. As much as I appreciate Alan Moore, I can't help but think that when you obsess over a symbol and regurgitate quotes from a book, you're not an activist, you're just a fan, and B, if you're going to throw your worship of an anti-government symbol into casual conversation, prepare to be instantly judged. And of course, he didn't ask a single thing about me or what I'm like, so naturally, the conversation fizzled out. Honestly, there should be a seminar on how to actually get girls interested in you. Story 20. I'm a dude, but this is relevant. My friends and I used to have a game we'd often play when we were out drinking together. It was referred to as the pickup-like game. You'd play by approaching a girl and trying on a pickup line. Whoever got the biggest response from their line, good or bad, didn't matter, wouldn't have to pay for a drink for the rest of the night. The only rules were no touching, and you couldn't reuse the same line twice. Also, it was generally understood that you couldn't just be outright offensive. At some point it started to get more elaborate. Props began to be used, and some of the pickup lines were more like skits involving other friends. Bribes were made to bartenders and bouncers for the purpose of setting up particular lines. Overseas trips were made with the intention to play the game. We actually had to formalize the scoring process to some extent to resolve disputes. It was fantastic. The game's success was its downfall, though. 2 of my friends are now dating girls that they met while trying to win that night's round. I wouldn't be surprised to see a post here from one of the girls that was an unwitting participant in our game. Some of the attempts were laughably horrendous. Story 21. I'm at McDonald's, grabbing some frozen coffee for my significant other and myself because honestly, it's delicious. I've already ordered, just waiting to get my card back. So, I'm standing at the counter when some guy notices me. There are 2 lines, but he leans across the no man's land, taps me on the shoulder, and I turn to look at him. I smile awkwardly, thinking I might know him, small town after all. Then I realize, nope, I don't. "Hey babe," he says with a little wink. "Who are you buying those coffees for? Yourself? Did you have a long night?" He raises his eyebrows suggestively and adds a tiny pelvic thrust. Yikes. I blush because confrontation isn't my thing and shake my head, not saying anything at first. Then I notice the promise ring my boyfriend gave me, a simple metal band, nothing fancy. I flash it in his face with a big smile. Nah, my husband and myself. The kiddos in the taekwondo class he teaches wore him out. Totally true, by the way. My boyfriend is a black belt. Yeah. The creepy guy goes pale, mumbles a quick sorry, and quickly shuffles off to go bother someone else. Story 22. I was at Walmart. I only go there for the self-checkout, picking up some shampoo and conditioner. While I was in the aisle alone, a guy walked through and stood right next to me. It made me really uncomfortable, so I moved to another spot while pretending to look at other products. He moved, too. Then he finally said, "Hey, my name's Mark," and stuck out his hand. I didn't want to be rude, but I didn't want to shake his hand either. But I did anyway and said, "I'm Callan." He just nodded and asked, "So you go to school around here?" I replied, "Yeah, at the high school." And then he asked, "Wait, how old are you?" 17. "Dang girl, you look no younger than 22. I just said, "Haha, no." Then he said, "All right, well, look me up on Facebook sometime." When he left, I grabbed my stuff and rushed to the checkout. As I was checking out, I heard him yell my name. When I turned around, he had his arms around some other girl, so I just waved while he walked away. Right as I was finishing, he came back and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't help myself. You're just too beautiful." I just said, "Thanks," and walked away. Maybe it wasn't entirely pathetic, but it definitely felt creepy to me. Story 23. Well, I once asked a random girl at the club if she is drunk enough to kiss me. She said no so naturally, I then hit on her best friend. She told me she doesn't like to come second to none, and I told her that I was simply too intimidated by her, which is why I hit on her friend in the first place. I then spent the rest of the night making out with her. Anyways, most of you girls here need to relax. Not everybody is out there to SA you. A girl said that while trying to buy some medicine for her stomach, a greasy-looking guy passed by and told her, "Not to worry, it's just the butterfly in her stomach," before he proceeded to walk by. This is by far not the most pathetic thing I've ever heard, and if you think this is pathetic, then you need to ground yourself a little bit. Just because someone is not a George Clooney lookalike, it does not make him pathetic. Ugly people can compliment people too. Just as long as they respect you and your personal bubble and leave you alone when asked they are okay. And then you wonder why people become socially awkward and cry after being called fat in public. Of course they are scared. On the one hand, you try to be witty, cute, and funny, and on the other hand, it's just the butterflies in your stomach becomes pathetic. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.